Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia, and today it's the waiver wire. It's time to hit it again. It's week 7, if you can believe it already, and Derek Brown is joining us to help us. That's right, D-Bro. Derek Brown, the king of bros, and our good pal is back again, Chris Allen, which I'm so excited to have him back. Talk about the hardest working man in show business. He's at 4 for 4 football. He's at Football Guys, Yahoo Fantasy, Fantasy Life with Matthew Berry, established the run. Chris Allen, when do you sleep? I think that's really the question to ask.
Never really. I mean, that's about, I get about maybe 4 to 5 hours or something like that, like on a daily basis or something like that. So it is kind of a grind, but no, I love it. I love it, man. And like we were talking before the show, like we're now getting into like the bye weeks. Things are starting to relax a little bit, to be quite honest, even though waivers might be a little bit tougher. But I do feel like with as much as we know about each team, as crazy as it might seem at this point, with like the Giants being, like 5-1 or whatever, and, just like all of these things that we know about the team so far, it becomes easier for us to make decisions, at least with picking up players. Starting them is a completely different decision, but we'll talk about that once we get to the show.
Well, I'm going to press the gas because that's what I do right at the top. So JuJu Smith-Schuster all of a sudden had the game people were waiting for. Is this the time to deal him away and get out of the JuJu business?
I wouldn't be surprised if folks are trying to put him up on the trade block like right now, because we've seen other players like within that offense like spike beforehand, like MBS, who just had a good game just this past week. I mean, we've already seen Travis Kelce is obviously the number one, and I don't even want to get into like their backfield at this point. So it's just, if you want to get out of JuJu Smith-Schuster with like him seeing a consistent 7 to 8 targets like per week, and if you want to try and trade up and get into any of the other like wide receivers at the top, package him away with a good running back or whatever the case may be, I wouldn't fault you for that move at this point, because after seeing the one good game from him at this point, if you want to try and find somebody that's a bit more consistent, a bit more useful for your fantasy team, I can understand that move 100%.
All right, let's kick things off with the sleeper waiver wire pickup of the week. And for me, it's a guy I told you to add last week because you could add him for nothing, and he was on the bye already, and he hasn't played a single down of NFL football yet in his career, but he'd be super cheap. I understand, though, roster crunches certainly happened over the weekend, and it was very tough. A lot of people had to make some hard decisions, but Jameson Williams of the Detroit Lions is just 48% roster still on sleeper. I'm telling you, this is a guy who has that potential to really add into this offense down the stretch. And the minute we start to get more clarity on him and what his availability is going to be here down the stretch for the Detroit Lions, this could be a difference maker potentially. It's a talent you want on your roster. I understand he hasn't played it down to football. I understand that's a tough sell for some people. But if you are a team that is 6-0, 5-1, even 4-2, you got to start looking ahead. You got to start being proactive, not reactive. And it's not a great week in terms of amazing guys with long-term potential in waiver wire. I think a lot of guys we're going to talk about are more potential short-term fixes, like the Deon Jacksons of the world, or a short-term fix, but boy, oh boy, that fixed a lot of problems. Jameson Williams, a guy that Derek Brown, you and I have talked about quite a bit. He is sneaking up to that 50% mark on sleeper. This feels like kind of the last chance before you get more news about him potentially in the next week or so coming back and playing. Do you believe this is kind of that last time to get him on the cheap?
Last chance to punch the ticket, man. I mean, but here's the thing. The only reason he's below 50% right now is because we haven't had the news blurb hit the wire of he's practicing with the team. As soon as that happens, he's going to skyrocket above 70, 80% as where he should be already. So yes, people need to be getting ahead of the curve. If you do not have him on your team, if he's out there in the league, if he's still out there at this point, it's not going to cost you much, people, for a talent that Detroit is top 3 in points and yards per play allowed. They're also top 3 in points and yards produced per play. So he's walking into, hold your breath here, an explosive offense, and he's just going to add more to that offense.
Yes, explosive and the Detroit Lions. Rarely have those two things have come together in one sentence here. Chris Allen Williams, another guy, I'm sure you recognize the talent from the Alabama days as well. This is a great opportunity, as D-Bro's talking about, in this offense. So what are your thoughts on people adding Williams here now before maybe in a week or two he's on the field?
I mean, we already talked about it earlier, saying that this week is a tough week for waivers. So fantasy managers, they need to be proactive, like not reactive. I mean, you need to get ahead of these types of things. And if there is a player out there who, if given the opportunity, we know that he's capable of popping, like in terms of fantasy production, and looking at where the Lions are right now as a team, I'm 100% agree with Debro, like saying that this is actually an explosive offense, like with Detroit. And looking at the first round draft capital that they sunk into drafting Jameson Williams, if he's out there and he's available and he's going to be out there running routes and earning targets for the team, he's definitely a player that you should at the very least stash on your bench and see what he's capable of in his rookie campaign.
All right, let's move on to the running backs and let's talk about the guys worth adding on Sleeper this week. Let's start with our guest, Chris Allen, who's the number one running back to add. And again, this could be a short-term fix too.
Yeah, for me, it's more of a short-term fix in order to address an issue that Baltimore's having right now, and it's at the running back position. J.K. Dobbins just this past week had some knee tightness during their game against the Giants. Looked like he missed about 3/4 of that game, and we saw Kenyan Drake wind up popping for about like over 100 yards. Actually caught a couple of targets as well. Found the end zone as well. So it just seems like he's the easy pickup like for this week. I mean, Baltimore, as of right now, they're second in rushing EPA. So we know that with the throw of Lamar Jackson still under center, I mean, this is capable of producing at least an efficient and potent rushing attack. Now, I get it. I mean, Gus Edwards could be back at some point. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're also trying to get like some of their other running backs like in the mix. But if I'm remembering correctly, just this past week, I mean, Kenyan Drake was the only one of the running backs like to run a route. I mean, outside of J.K. Dobbins. So it's just, I mean, if I'm trying to get any of the running backs that are currently capable of scoring both like on the ground and through the air, Kenyan Drake offers the highest upside for that. So I think he'd be the one I'd target the first. First.
And he's less than 10% rostered. So with the uncertainty of Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, how aggressive would you be with the FAAB on him?
About 8 to 10% if I could get him at that point. I mean, it's just because we know it's going to be more of a short-term thing. If we had more of at least a better outlook on what J.K. Dobbins is going to look like over the next like few weeks, and also some more insight into what Gus Edwards is going to be doing, I'd be a bit more aggressive. But just knowing up front it's going to be a short-term thing, I'd keep it as light as possible.
All right, let's go over to your number one RB ad for week 7, Derek Brown, who's on your list at the top.
Well, first I got to shout out Chris Allen. I mean, look, Kenyan Drake is a fantastic call. He's number 3 on my list, considering he's under 10% for sleeper. So love that call out, especially with the matchup against the Browns this week. You're looking at an offense or a defense that's top 3 in rushing yards, touchdowns, and fantasy points per game allowed to running back. So honestly, Kenyan Drake could be this week's Eno Benjamin. Now, hopefully better results than we saw at Eno, yes, but yeah. As in a plug-and-play top 24 running back, I love the call-out, Chris. My number one guy is somebody that we've been talking about for weeks, and I still have to bring him up because he's still under 50% rostered on Sleeper. He's sitting at 46%. I'd be giving 8 to 10% for Mike Boone to come over to the squad, considering when we saw him last week, and by the time you're listening to this, maybe he already eviscerated the Chargers and you're saying, well, he's not out there anymore. If he is, pick him up, stash him now. 41% of the snaps in the last game he played, 10 touches, 85 total yards, and he's looked good when he's gotten opportunities. He's 12th in yards after contact per attempt, 22nd in PFF's elusive rating. If he goes and balls out against the Chargers, or that's already happened, good luck getting him at that point. And he's already offering you standalone flex value for the role that he has. Melvin Gordon's already banged up walking into this game. He misses any time or goes out, you're talking about a top 20, top 24 running back. Could be as soon as next week if anything were to happen to Gordon. So you need to be snatching him up. I can't even believe that he's below 50% right now, guys.
No, it's certainly one that I get why. It's, I think, the general malaise of the Denver Broncos offense. I think that's kind of really sunk a lot of the values of a lot of those players, and rightfully so at this point. Let's talk about another guy who might be more of a cagey ad for you at the running back position this week. Maybe once again, looking ahead in that proactive discussion we had earlier, Chris.
Yeah, and for me, it's just all of the trade buzz that's going around the Carolina Panthers, like right now, like after, I mean, they get their head coach that gets ousted, and now we're just seeing if it's going to be a complete fire sale or not. I mean, the team has already come out and said there are a few players that are completely protected, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Christian McCaffrey isn't above like some of those trade rumors as of right now. And so if that's the case, I mean, we're already seeing like Robbie Anderson is pretty much that man's out of there. Like we saw him yesterday, that man would like, he is ready to be done. He's ready to move on like to his next team. And we'll see if the same thing happens for Christian McCaffrey. In that event, Donta Foreman actually becomes like somewhat of the more interesting add to me. I mean, you can get him absolutely for free at this point. And I know a lot of the folks were thinking, I mean, some of the dynasty folks like a couple years ago were thinking like Chuba Hubbard would be the guy to back him up. Absolutely not. I mean, Foreman is the one that's out there running routes. Foreman is the one that's out there in those short yardage and 2-minute scenarios, well above, like well ahead of Hubbard at this point. So if there is a backup that you want to try and get, like I said, like we're trying to be proactive in the event that seems he does get traded with all the rumors flying around him at this point. And if you want to get in on the cheap, right now would be the time to stash Foreman versus waiting for the rumors to happen, waiting for the trade deadline to occur here within the next, what do we got, like another few weeks or something like that, a month or so before the deadline. So if you want to get in now before rumors start to pick up and your ability to pick him up also goes right out the window, I'd grab Foreman now.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. And I agree with you 100% that Foreman is that guy. And he looked sharp last year. And it was a player that I think we all liked in the Houston days. But Houston never really gave him the opportunity. And then when he finally did get the opportunity, he got hurt. And then it just all kind of fell apart. Last year was very eye-opening in those moments he had taking over for Derrick Henry. So I think the fact that they went out there and they signed him tells you what they think of Chuba as well, which is not enough, I think. Let's go to Derrick Brown's number 2 guy to add here on the waiver wire at the running back position. Who you got, D-Bro?
Another running back we've talked about in recent weeks, Joe, but he's still below 50%, so I got to bring him up here because he has the upside. It's Rachaad White. He's only rostered in 49% of sleeper leagues. Again, 8 to 10%, get him on your roster. Now, while, and I wrote this up in the primer last week, Rachaad White has not been efficient. He is one of the least efficient tackle-breaking running backs in the NFL right now. But guess what? It doesn't kind of matter whenever you're on one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL, and you're going to catch a ton of passes. Over the last 3 games, he's averaging almost 8 touches per game, over 40 total yards per game. Those are flex-worthy numbers, especially in PPR leagues. He gets into the end zone in any one of those games, you're talking about a top 36 running back, a strong flex play, and even for his role that he currently has in the passing game specifically, I mean, he gets the Carolina Panthers and the Baltimore Ravens in the next 2 weeks. I mean, entering week 6, Baltimore had given up top 5 numbers in receptions and receiving yards allowed. Carolina is 22nd in DVOA versus receiving backs. So even if you're not going to look at starting, or you're not looking at, okay, the total league winning capacity of Rachaad White, even as a flex play and we get into bye weeks, he could still walk into the end zone next week and end up as a fantastic flex play. So regardless of whatever avenue you want to talk yourself into, you need to be picking up Rachaad White.
All right, there you have it. Let's get to another player, too, because Rachaad White, 49% rostered. Again, he's been somebody a little higher. When you talk about percentage, too, how much would you be spending at this point for Rachaad White?
8 to 10%. I mean, if you want to get a little more aggressive, like if you're a really good team, you're sitting with 1 loss, you're undefeated, and you're looking at cementing like stretch winners, league winners down the stretch, then I have no problem being a little more aggressive, like 12, 15%, getting them on your squad.
Now, Chris, you mentioned Donta Foreman before. He's rostered in just 12% of leagues, but that's going to start to uptick a little bit here with all the Christian McCaffrey buzz. Give me another guy, too, who might be potentially a running back add, who might get some more opportunities here if some changes are made to their respective roster as well.
Absolutely. And shout out to Derek for that call on Rachaad White. I mean, the dude just last week, he out-targeted the tight ends, if I remember correctly. He had the same number of not targets, but if I remember correctly, I think he had the same number of targets as Mike Evans last week. I think at 4. So it's just, if he's already getting involved in the passing game, we'll just see if there's any sort of turnaround between him and Leonard Fournette in terms of that split between in their workload. Then 100%, like White should be on people's rosters at this point. But I'm going to do another IR stash at this point. Kyren Williams. Backup, or at least, or as of right now, backup running back for the Los Angeles Rams, because we don't know like what's going on with Cam Akers at this point. I mean, from all reports, it's sounding like that Akers has played like his last snap like in LA. He'll be shipped off like somewhere else as well, looking like he's on the same path as Robbie Anderson at this point. We were talking about the Panthers a little bit ago. So it seemed like in week 1, like before he got hurt, like Sean McVay was more than happy to make this a 3-man backfield with Darrell Henderson being on the outs, and it being Cam Akers and Kyren Williams being the ones like that were more or less like handling the majority of the workload. And since he's been injured, it has been Darrell Henderson to really reap the benefits of the injuries to the other two. But now if things start to shift, Darrell Henderson being the only one that's capable of being at least the healthy of the bunch, Kyren Williams at least walks into being, let's say, the RB2, like in that two-man backfield. I mean, of course, yeah, I get it. They've got Malcolm Brown. Ronnie Rivers was actually like brought in for some short yardage situations just this past week. But I can see a scenario where at the very least, they continue to rely more on Williams, like moving forward. I mean, they had him like in short yardage and 2-minute scenarios, like in the short time that he was on the field, like back in week 1. So if he comes back, he's healthy. We know that they do have concerns about Henderson's like longevity from a health standpoint anyway. So again, for cheap, I mean, 1 to 2% of your FAAB, or shoot, you probably won't even need to use any of that. I mean, you definitely be like not Henderson, but Williams should be another guy you should be stashing as well.
All right. So again, a guy who's just 11% rostered on Sleeper. And I know like the big guy we didn't talk about is Deon Jackson, who had a huge game, which Derek Brown, I don't know if you made any Eno pivots in DFS to Deon. I made 1 or 2. No. And boy, oh boy, was I happy I did. It was a good day. Lots of Deon, lots of Jamar Chase playing.
Derek,
together.
You didn't know that he was going to get like a 20+% target share? Come on.
I just wanted exposure. I learned from my good friend Derek Brown. Sometimes you just got to make sure you have some good different exposure to some different things. So I was like, Deon Jackson, no Hakeem Hines, no Jonathan Taylor. And look, he caught 10 of his 10 targets for 79 yards. It was an unbelievable day. He had the touchdown. He had 12 carries for 42. The week before, he had 13 carries for 62. Again, this is a player that we have uncertainty because we thought Jonathan Taylor was going to play. Then we got the news over the weekend he wasn't. So what do you do with him? Because he is a player that is rostered now on Sleeper over 50%. We tend to talk about the guys under 50. He's a 51. I'm sure he's going to be very popular this week. D-Bro, you think this is fool's gold. You told me before the show. Talk to the people why, and talk to specifically the Jonathan Taylor folks out there too that are watching this happen going, this is supposed to be my day. This is supposed to be my Jonathan Taylor points.
Well, first of all of Twitter let me know that I should have seen him coming as the second coming of Christian McCaffrey, getting a 30% target share and things like that. I should have obviously seen this and ranked him higher when I threw it out there on Twitter that he was an RB3 because Jacksonville's a tough matchup for running backs. I wasn't aware that Deon Jackson was going to be the new wide receiver 1. But now walking away from the week, apparently I know that now. But Deon Jackson, I do think is fool's gold. Now, I'm not willing to sit here and in a lot of leagues, he's going to go for a much higher FAAB bid than I'm ever willing to put out there because Jonathan Taylor almost played last week. He was limited in practice all week, another week of practice and therapy. I think he's going to be back this week. And even if Jonathan Taylor isn't back, Nyheim Hines should be making it back this week. He didn't clear concussion protocol last week. Give him 2 full weeks to get over it. I think he's probably going to be back this week. And if he is back, I think Deon Jackson's role is just nerfed. I mean, Nyheim Hines and Deon Jackson are going to play similar roles. I think if you're looking at somebody as the early down complement to Nyheim Hines, it's probably going to be Phillip Lindsay over Deon Jackson, but we'll see. But this all comes down to, if not one of these running backs, maybe both of them are back this week. So no, I'm not blowing the FAAB on a running back where it was like, look, if you wanted the window of his productivity and you haven't picked him up already, you've already missed it. Why are you going to chase it? You're chasing now. So you're going to blow your FAAB off of a player that is going to be turned back into a pumpkin as soon as the 2 starting running backs get back? Nah, I'm not doing that.
All right, but Chris, what about your 3-3 team? You've got buys hitting this week. Let's say you're missing a Devin Singletary and you're missing, I don't know, maybe you're missing Darrell Henderson or something. You need some help. How aggressive would you be on this guy? Because Deon Jackson showed you he has some big game ability, and the running back position for concussions a little bit different scenario than the quarterback position, I think, in terms of protection, in terms of what we're trying to do to make sure guys are healthy. So even with Nyheim Hines potentially maybe even back and maybe that limitation that he might have attached to him, what would you be doing here if you were a 3-3 team looking to win now? How aggressive would you be on Deon Jackson after that performance?
I think Deon Jackson falls into the same bucket as Kenyan Drake to me, like in terms of the fact that we know that, I mean, the starters ahead of him like should be back at some point, or if not, there are other players on the roster that provide at least a little bit of uncertainty regarding his role, like moving forward. So I think in that sense, like what did I say for Kenyan Drake? Like 8 to 10%, like somewhere in there. I think that's fine, just because we know that he is a short-term option, a good short-term option, a part of a team that apparently can be explosive. Matt Ryan pops up for a 300+ yard passing day. So if we can see more of that, like some level of consistency, some level of efficiency, like of the team, like moving forward, then I do think that Deon Jackson at least has the capability of producing, let's say RB2-ish like fantasy scores like moving forward. But again, since we do know that Jonathan Taylor should be back at some point, Hines is going to be there, I wouldn't, like Derek said, I wouldn't be, overspending on him at this point. Just, his role should be reduced at some point here soon.
Well, and that's the problem, Chris, is that with 8 to 10%, you're probably not going to get him in a lot of leagues, considering the game he's come off of. I bet you people are blowing. I mean, what do you say, guys? Like, consensus here. 15 to 20% is probably what people are going to put out there for him after the Monster game?
Yeah,
probably. So, and you know what? I'm not going to tell you it's wrong if you are in that 3-3, 2-4 conversation. Like, you might as well throw it to the wall and see what sticks and fight for your life. That's all I'm saying. Like,
I think it's wrong because if he turns back into a pumpkin, you just blew 20% of your budget.
Yeah, but you know what? But if your season's trending in the downward spiral anyway, you might as well give it a shot, because if you gave it a shot last week, you'd probably be 3-3 instead of 2-4.
I can agree with that.
I can agree with that. That's the thought process, right? Yeah. Gus Edwards, Caleb Huntley, Chuba Hubbard, also guys kind of in those deeper leagues to be looking at. Edwards, another guy to talk about. Let's switch gears. Boy, for all of a sudden not being super thrilled about some of these names, we certainly spent a lot of time and energy here. Let's talk to some of the other guys at wide receiver. We already talked about Jameson Williams, but I'll let you go one more time here, Derek Brown, because he's actually at the top of your wide receiver list too. So once more, just in case for the people on the balcony who have bad hearing.
I mean, he's my number one guy. He is the highest upside for the rest of the season as far as you're looking at possible league winners. So with the waiver wire looking this week as far as wide receivers, pickups, guys that really, I think this week offers the most value as looking forward, like looking for not necessarily players that are going to win me this upcoming week, but who can win me 2 weeks from now? Who can win me a month from now? Who can be the guy that I need for the playoffs? That's how I'm approaching most of this week. And so that's why Jameson Williams has to be my number one wide receiver.
All right, let's go to your number one wide receiver, Chris Allen. Who is it for week 7?
Wan'Dale. I mean, the rookie wide receiver, like for the Giants. And I know that if you just see the team name, like if you look at the Giants outside of like the actual like Giants fans, like I'm not trying to start any mess with like the Giants Mafia or anything like that. But if you look at the Giants and you just say like, oh man, I don't want to roster anybody attached to Daniel Jones. Like that's terrible. Like I just can't do it. And also, if you look at like Wan'Dale Robinson's just like route participation just that week, little meager, right? 23% of the offensive snaps yesterday, if I'm remembering correctly. I mean, he only ran like 11 routes. But remember that he is also coming off injury. I mean, he was out like almost essentially like an entire month. So with the team easing him back in and seeing him almost immediately like use the way that he was, I mean, like 4 targets on 11 routes, so decent like target participation on the limited usage that he had out there on the field. And also he was rotated into the slot. Like we saw less of Richie James, more of Wan'Dale Robinson. So if we do want this high percentage targets like for Daniel Jones, because we know he can be erratic if he has to throw outside the numbers, and we can also expect, assuming there are no setbacks, for his usage to increase like moving forward. It's a team that needs playmakers, team that needs explosiveness outside of Saquon Barkley. So if there's going to be one wide receiver that I feel like I can get in on the cheap, just because people still don't believe like in the Giants at this point, even though they're 5-1 or whatever. I mean, I would go ahead and grab like Wan'Dale Robinson if I could, like for, again, it doesn't have to be like, super expensive, 6, 7, 8%, like somewhere in there. Like, I don't think it has to get you don't have to get wild with the FAAB just because a lot of folks haven't bought into the Giants offense. And Wan'Dale
maybe
himself,
he improves too, Wan'Dale. Yeah. I mean, look, there's certainly going to be opportunity because Kenny Golladay ain't taking it. Kadarius Toney ain't taking it.
He can't even be on the field.
I mean, that's what I mean. These guys can't get on the field or don't get on the field, or you don't want them on the field at this point. So it's almost like, why not Wan'Dale? I think that should be his.
That's a slogan right there.
Hashtag why not Wan'Dale? Let's and he's only 20% rostered, as we mentioned before. So Debro, he's your number 2 guy. Talk to me about Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, the talent is there. I know Chris is deep in the dynasty streets. He's over at UJO. Like, we all love the prospect profile coming into the season. We were all talking about him in best ball season, like as a late round guy, and the talent is there. The opportunity is there. Like, actually, we got a few different layers of the Giants we're going to get to in this show, but there is opportunity to be had in this passing game. And while a lot of people are saying, yuck, it's gross, there is volume and opportunity in this passing game And we honestly could be seeing the floor of this passing game too. Like, this is a run-balanced offense. This is a run-heavy offense. If some of these parts or pieces of this offense get healthier, Daniel Jones shows that he can be somewhat of a competent quarterback. May the pass attempts come up a little bit, and we know the routes are going to come up. As long as Wan'Dale continues to build on this opportunity and his health improves, I think this was honestly just easing him in. And for Wan'Dale specifically, he's got really good matchups over the next 4 games. Jacksonville, Seattle, Houston, and Detroit. You can crush all of these defenses through the slot. That's going to be Wan'Dale's role when he's on the field. Yeah, I love the pickup. He's my number 2 guy.
All right, let's go to your number 2 guy, wide receiver for week 7, Chris Allen. Who is it?
All right, pop quiz, fellas. Who leads the Jacksonville Jaguars in receptions through 6 weeks?
I know we're all going to say Christian Kirk, and you're going to say we're wrong.
I'm guessing it's not Christian Kirk the way you're saying.
Zay Jones. Zay Jones.
Zay, it ain't so, Chris.
Yes.
Zay, it ain't so.
And he missed a game too, on top of that. Like, he even missed a game.
He did, yeah.
Which is kind of wild. But I mean, yeah, Zay Jones for me at this point, I was excited about him, like, after seeing him kind of flash, like, in his last few games, like over the back half of last season. He was still with Las Vegas. But seeing him actually be like a reliable number 2 in that offense, I mean, I know, like, the Jaguars offense, like under Trevor Lawrence, I mean, they've looked good at times and they've stuttered at other times, and that's okay. But if I'm seeing a guy that's going to be out there, like, running routes, so like at this point, he's second on the team in routes. Also, like I said, like, leading the team, like, in receptions at this point. I mean, looking at their schedule moving forward, like, who do they got? Jacksonville's got, like, the Giants this week, Denver goes back, he actually plays against his old team with the Raiders back in week 9. So not bad matchups at this point. I think the Raiders are actually one of the better matchups for wide receivers in the league right now, according to adjusted fantasy points allowed. So over a 3-week schedule, you can probably also pick him up on the cheap because so many folks have been focused on, I mean, rightfully so, like the running backs. I mean, looking at like Christian Kirk trying to jam him in, and even Evan Ingram at a time. Zay Jones is kind of like the least popular guy like on the team, but if I can get that guy in there for cheap, again, attached to Trevor Lawrence, like, I'll take him for sure.
He's a guy that I've added in a lot of leagues in the last couple of weeks, and just sort of covering myself a little bit, looking ahead of buys and saying, okay, well, here are some guys that might have some opportunity to be a flex play, or some of those leagues where you have multiple flex plays, you're playing in these 14-team leagues. Like Zay Jones, the fact that he's only still under 40% rosters at 34 on Sleeper is still kind of surprising to me, considering some of the numbers on some of the guys that we've even mentioned that people are still holding on to. I think in one league, I actually dropped Darnell Mooney for him. And people were like, what, are you crazy? I was like, honestly, I don't know if I am. I feel like Zay Jones might be a better investment rest of season than Darnell Mooney. And that breaks my heart, makes me sad. But
he was the exact name I was thinking of as a guy that you just keep on the back end of your roster, just given the opportunity.
I did it last week. And there was that moment in that game where I was like, oh my God, I've remorse now. Here it comes. But thank goodness the Bears never let me down by always letting me down. All right, let's get to Derek Brown's third guy on his wide receiver list. Who you got, D-Bro?
All right, since we're gonna go down the continual pain train, I have to bring him up again. Skyy Moore. He is only rostered in 24% of sleeper leagues. It's not going to take you much, 1 to 3% of your FAAB. Again, I'm looking towards the future. And Andy Reid, we need to have a sit-down conversation, sir.
Uh-oh. For real.
Come close. Come close. Sit down. It's okay. Why do you not want to play your most talented wide receiver? Why do you not want to play the rookie that has flashed in each game that you've given him opportunities? I understand. You've given him 11 or more routes in each of the last 3 games. He's played 20% or more of the snaps in each of the last 3 games. That's great. Those are cookies. You need to give this man a full meal, considering he's got 3 games this season over 1.8 yards per route run. He is easily your most talented pass catcher. Do the right thing, Andy. Play the kid. Play him now.
Good. That was good pep talk. I like that. It was very good. Hey, look, on the last play of the game there, where the interception happened, who was he targeting? Skyy Moore.
Okay, now.
That's what, in the biggest spot of that game, that's who he was looking for and trying to get the ball to. So,
breakout's coming.
We've been on this. I've been talking about it. I feel like ad nauseum, but I feel like this is one of those things where just because JuJu had that game, if the proper tackle's made on that play, JuJu does not have that first touchdown. Period. End of story. If you're watching that game, there's a difference of when you're watching the games and just looking at the box scores. you don't see these things in the box scores. You see them when you're watching, and you know that, look, it just still wasn't great. Look, there's some moments I give him some credit, but 24% rostered Skyy Moore is right now. You could probably still throw a couple bucks and still get him. Give me another guy, maybe another young wide receiver, Chris, that you have on your target list, a wide receiver for week 7 that might also be in a similar boat, because God knows the Green Bay Packers need some help.
Yeah, and I think Christian Watson could probably provide it. And it's a very specific area of the field that I think they're struggling the most on. It's on third down, obvious passing situation. And historically, it's been one of the best areas like for Aaron Rodgers, because that Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams connection, like historically, like since 2018, like Aaron Rodgers was just absolutely deadly. I mean, top 5, like top 3 in terms of EPA per play, like on third downs. Like this season, like he is throwing like 3 fewer air yards per pass, like on third downs. And he's also like 3 percentage points lower on his completion percentage over expected. So he's throwing shorter passes and he's more inaccurate like this season without Devontae Adams on the field. And looking at all the rest of the wide receivers that he's currently throwing to, I mean, the most efficient player, the most efficient receiver like that he's targeted on third down so far this season has been Randall Cobb. The same Randall Cobb that was just carted off the field in tears, like just yesterday, or on Sunday rather. So, I mean, with Christian Watson like primarily playing like out of the slot, like when he has been like on third downs, and they need those explosive playmakers because Dobbs is he's typically played like outside. And so like Allen Lazard was also played in the slot. He's actually one of the more inefficient receivers like so far, like on third downs. So in that role, like on top of what else like Christian Watson can provide, like on any other down or any other passing situation, I do think like right now with him returning from his hamstring injury that he suffered a couple of weeks back, I do think that he's a better speculative ad at this point because it's just something that the Packers need right now.
Yeah, and certainly the Packers have an opportunity this week to air out the ball against the Washington Commanders. Like, this is your chance to go make some mistakes. This is a secondary. D-Bro and I on the DFS show keep going after them as much as we possibly can. This is your chance, Aaron Rodgers, to let them fail and learn on the job. Please go out there, be aggressive. It's okay to make mistakes. You're going to have Tyler Heineke playing freaking quarterback probably for the next couple of weeks too with the Commanders. Taylor Heineke, we know what he is. We've seen him already. So go out there, go take some shots. You're going to have lots of opportunities because Heineke's going to give them to you. So take them, use them well. I am all on board on this. Let's go. Give me another guy. Look, a lot of rookies we got today. A lot of rookies. D-Bro's got another rookie too on his wide receiver list. Who is it?
Look, I'm continuing the long-term view, and I want talent, I want rookies, and I think that if we're talking about all of these talented rookies that have high draft capital, we might not agree with it, and that's fine. Nobody ever wants Patriots wide receivers. We've talked about it on previous shows. Jakobi Meyers getting a 30% target share. Nobody wants him. I got another one for you, people. Tyquan Thornton. 1 to 3% of your FAAB. It's probably all it's going to take. He's only rostered in 4% of sleeper leagues. Tyquan balled out in his first game back. He ran a route on 76% of Zappy's drop or pass attempts. He drew almost a 15% target share. And we heard rumblings in the offseason of the Patriots incorporating more Shanahan-like concepts. They gave the man 3 rushing attempts. He got 2 touchdowns this week on this limited volume. But he was a full-time player. What do we think he's going to do? Mac Jones coming back. He gets further integrated into the offense. He has 4.2 speed to burn. And the other thing is, outside of Jakobi Meyers, who is demanding targets in this offense? It's not Devontae Parker. Hunter Henry, okay, fine. He's not a game-changing talent. Neither is JuJu Smith at this point. So you want to talk about talented rookies that could explode down the stretch. The cheapest one that's going to go under the radar right now is Tyquan Thornton. And I say that, and people are going to say, but he just had 2 touchdowns. How are you talking about him being under the radar? The Patriots wide receivers, and we see this. Jakobi Meyers was a top 10 wide receiver walking into this week in fantasy points per game, and nobody wanted him either. So yes, I do believe that he's going to go under the radar because nobody wants parts or pieces of the Patriots passing game. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's targets and it's talent and upside. Yeah, he's going to go overlooked.
Well, especially in bye weeks. Like, you just take whatever's working right now. And I don't know if it's going to be Bailey Zappi, big time Bailey, or if it's going to be Mac Jones back next week. We shall see. But look, Tyquan Thornton certainly has that playmaking ability. The size, the frame, that's the concern we have. Should he have been drafted over George Pickens? No, he should not be. And you can tell I'm not bitter about it at all still. Everything's fine. Chris Allen, give me your last guy at wide receiver you want to add this week for week 7.
This is more of a speculative ad because we saw Marquise Brown go down towards the back end of their game against Seattle. If that's the case, and we'd see him out for an extended period of time, that brings Greg Dortch back into our lives. Because after Wan'Dale Moore came back to the lineup, Dortch was immediately regulated back to his special teams duties. So now if there's more of a rotation at the wide receiver position, of course we get DeAndre Hopkins back this week, and we'll see how that works out with him returning to the lineup. But with him primarily playing on the outside, AJ Green primarily playing on the outside, there could be more of a rotation between Moore and Dortch in the slot. So I'd pick him back up if you can.
All right, so there you have it. And Greg Dortch, I think, is a very cagey ad this week, especially you don't know, is Hopkins going to come back and be on a snap count too? I mean, it's first game back. Who knows?
Could be.
So Dortch, just 9% rostered now because he was dropped like a drum there. Tyquan Thornton's under 5% rostered on Sleeper. Skyy Moore under 25%. Christian Watson under 25%. He's at 21. So these guys are available. And this is also the time of year I want to remind everybody that we saw a recent trend in the last few years, not just running backs, but wide receivers too. These rookies start to get it. They start to pick things up. They start to show you what they can do in practice. They start to show you in small spurts on the field. These are the guys. And if you pick the right one or two, maybe they can be huge contributors to a good playoff run in fantasy. So this is the time of year when these guys start to pop right after Halloween. This is the guys in November where we went, oh, why didn't I see that coming? I should have added that guy. We're telling you, add that guy now and then be patient. And I know it's tough when you have buys. I know it's tough when you have a 500 record, but look, you got to be proactive here, not reactive. Let's get to quarterback here. D-Bro, who's your QB to add this week?
It's Matt Ryan. I understand that he might be old, and I get that people are not big on Matt Ryan, and I understand it, but it's not going to take you much, 1 to 3% of your FAAB. He's under 30%. What he's only rostered in 30% of leagues on Sleeper. Matt Ryan has a fantastic matchup this week. He's been averaging 45 pass attempts over the last 3 games, 332 passing yards. We talked about the emergence of Alec Pierce. Paris Campbell showed some type of heartbeat. We know Michael Pittman is a stud. This week he gets Tennessee, who have given up all things passing to opposing offenses. We're looking at a defense that's second in passing touchdowns, 5th in fantasy points per game allowed to quarterbacks. Oh, and look at that. They're 30th in explosive pass rate and passing yards allowed per game. Matt Ryan can ball out again this week. And yes, I say ball out because he did it last week. So they're allowing him to throw the ball a ton. He's not a sexy name, but I'm telling you right now, he could easily end up as a top 10, top 12 quarterback in fantasy. Pick him up right now.
All right, he's taking on the Titans this coming week. And as we said, they're 30% rostered. You don't have to spend a whole lot. You're going to have Josh Allen on a bye this week, Jalen Hurts on a bye. People are going to be looking for quarterbacks. So, Chris, who would you be turning to right now on the waiver wire if you're in those single quarterback leagues and you're looking to stream somebody this week?
Now, typically, I would advocate for a quarterback that's on a team that passes a lot, but with Marcus Mariota, doesn't matter. I mean, they're 30th in pass rate over expectation. That was entering week 6. But Marcus Mariota, 3rd in designed rushing attempts amongst all QBs at this point, after week 6. And I mean, he's been doing well with the rock in his hands, so I can't really go against him at this point. This is according to Rich Rebar. Earlier today, the Falcons are averaging a first down or a TD once every 3.1 plays. That's probably sustainable, right? They could probably keep that going. But at least against Cincinnati, I don't see why that can't be a problem. I know that my Bengals, I know it might be problematic, for me to go against my own team, but without DJ Reader in the lineup on the defensive end, I mean, that's going to be problematic for Cincinnati. So I think they should be able to put up enough rushing production for Marcus Mariota to make his hay on the ground. And also, if they can get into the red zone, he can pop a couple of passes to Kyle Pitts, finally scoring touchdowns too. So against Cincinnati, I think Marcus Mariota is a viable streaming candidate for week 7 rather.
Yeah, 23% rostered on Sleeper, and I will issue a public apology to Marcus Mariota and to Derek Brown. You were much better than I thought you ever would be against the San Francisco 49ers defense. San Francisco, you've got some soul searching to do. I don't know who you are or who you think you are, but you better figure it out real quick because that division's very winnable and you are not running away with it, and you should be. But yes, Marcus Mariota lives to fight another week, so we shall see. Let's get to the tight end position. Oh, goodness, this is never pretty, but Chris, give me a tight end that you can stream this week, maybe, that might be flying under the radar. Because, again, we're going to be missing some guys. Dallas Goedert's going to be out there, or Smith's going to be out because of the bye. We've got Dawson Knox, who had a touchdown. He's out. So just when you thought, oh, great, I picked up Dawson Knox, he scored a touchdown. Well, you can't play him in week 7. So who can you play that you might want to?
Yeah, I mean, Derek already hit on the team that's actually kind of intriguing at this point. We'll see. I mean, there's QB controversy in New England, maybe. I mean, if we're interested in Tyquan Thornton, then why not be interested in like Hunter Henry as well? I mean, with JuJu Smith, like not necessarily being sidelined, but let's say that he's been limited, like with some ankle problems over the past 2 weeks. We've seen Hunter Henry get a larger share of the workload, like running a few more routes and getting targeted on those routes. And especially after seeing him scamper into the end zone for like a 20-ish yard like touchdown last week, at least gives me some positivity or optimism towards his outlook for this week. So if there is a guy that I'd be looking to stream, I mean, Hunter Henry isn't the worst option, like given the way that Zappy's been playing so far.
All right, let's get to the next one on the list here. D-Bro, who you got in terms of where you want to put your money for tight end this week?
Well, I alluded to a very Giants-heavy waiver wire show here, guys. Daniel Bellinger makes a ton of sense. His playing time went through the roof. And again, we're talking about a passing attack that, yes, it might not be sexy, but there's opportunity to be had. Bellinger, we know the athleticism is there. Guy came out of college, has an 82nd percentile burst score. He ran a 4.640. He played 93% of the snaps, drew an 18% target share, got into the end zone, and now not only can you stream him this week, but you need to hold him for next week. I'm giving you a guy that has 2-week viability. You're going to be able to pick up for pennies right now. Jacksonville is 21st in DVOA against tight ends. The next week, he gets Seattle, which is the worst team in the NFL versus the tight end position right now. Pick him up, and you're able to start him right now over the next 2 weeks, especially if you're in a pinch.
Hunter Henry, 36% rostered. Daniel Bellinger, just 7% rostered. But again, there's targets available in the Giants offense. Let's talk about the defenses of the week. D-Bro, who's the defense you want to stream you feel good about?
All the G-men love. I just need to
Big
go
blue,
full,
baby.
NFC
Well,
East
Leonard Williams coming back certainly helps that love a little bit. Yeah, that certainly, it's not a bad thing.
I just can't get away from the NFC East. I spit a lot of Eagles love on this podcast. Now apparently I'm all in on the Giants. Prayers. But the Giants defense does make a lot of sense this week. They're going against Jacksonville, and the things that I follow for defense, especially streamers, I want to see, can you get after the quarterback? Because if you can, we maybe have interception opportunities, we have turnover opportunities, you get sacks. We need you to pressure the quarterback to score fantasy points. And the Giants are doing this. Not only that, they're playing pass defense really well. Adoree Jackson has been shadowing number 1 wide receivers extremely well this year. That's why the pass defense is holding up. And they're allowing the 7th lowest yards per attempt. They're also 1st in blitz rate and 9th in pressure rate. And we've seen Jacksonville is not allowing Trevor Lawrence to go out there and just play gunslinger. They have him in a game manager role right now. That doesn't mean that he's not going to pass and he's not going to take opportunities, but you can rattle the young quarterback still. And I think Wink is going to dial up the blitz rate a ton and still try to get after Trevor Lawrence. So, yeah, I love the Giants this week. They're probably going to be inside my top 10 defenses ranked for the week.
All right, Chris, who you want to stream at D this week?
I just want to see Sauce Gardner play some more, man, because that dude, I mean, the Jets defense, I think, is actually fairly legit. I don't know if their offense
wearing
is
the
good
cheesehead crown after the game, baby.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
Much better than that.
Yeah, not gonna lie. I mean, I'll give credit where credit is due, and that kid is actually playing really well. It was a few weeks ago when they played against Cincinnati when he was getting in Jamar Chase's head, and we've seen it each week. He's really showing why it was right for the Jets to wind up investing in him when they did in this year's draft class. And so going up against Denver, I know they're traveling to Denver in order to play in this game, so wouldn't necessarily always advocate for streaming a defense going on the road, but with them being top 12 in both rush and pass EPA allowed so far through 6 weeks, also top 10 in pressure rate as well. I mean, it sets up well enough for them to be able to get after Russell Wilson. We know he can be erratic so far, especially with whatever injury he has going on to his non-throwing shoulder. So at this point, they are a viable streaming defense candidate, I think, for week 7.
All right. So all the New York defenses, that's what you went and look. The Denver Broncos offense hasn't shown you much. We'll see if they show us anything tonight, but my goodness, that hasn't been good. Let's go. All right, let's get to, for those people who don't have FAAB to spend, we're just trying to add people on waiver wires. Give us your ranking, Chris, of the top 5 waiver wire ads for you for week 7.
So for me, I always start off with quarterback because I always try and at least look at streaming quarterbacks first. So I'll start with Marcus Mariota, then the short-term option in Kenyan Drake, Wan'Dale, Zay Jones, and then streaming tight end Hunter Henry.
Okay, D-Bro, give me your top 5 ads of the week.
Mike Boone, Rachaad White make the list. Again, we want the upside of running backs. And then I'm going the long-term view with wide receivers here. I want these stretch winners. Jameson Williams, Wan'Dale, and Skyy Moore are my 3, 4, and 5 number pickups for the week.
Yeah, is 6 Tyquan Thornton or Christian Watson? Just out of curiosity, I don't know.
Tyquan would be number 6 for me.
There we go. That juggernaut of an offense with Bailey Zappi under center. Who'd have thought? And I haven't talked to Andrew Erickson about it yet, but now we see this happens. We open Pandora's box with the Bailey Zappi thing we wanted to see, and now we don't know what to do with ourselves. We're crazy. All right, let's get to the keep or drop game here. I'm going to give you some players, their roster percentage on the Sleeper app. You tell me if you want to keep or drop them. Tyler Conklin, it was a good story while it lasted. 36% roster. Chris Allen, keep or drop Tyler Conklin?
Drop for me. I've seen too many other like Braxton Berrios like rushing in touchdowns and all these other things. Breece Hall really coming on like as a pass catcher too. So no, I'm out on Conklin.
Naheem Hines, 57% roster. Derek Brown, you want to keep or drop him?
Keep. I think he's going to be back, and if that's the case, then he's the pickup.
All right, Jarvis Landry, 38% rostered. Keep or drop Chris Allen?
I'll keep for right now. I know it's Olave, the Michael Thomas show when they get back, but if you give enough time and the offense gets healthy, I think
short
he's
week
worth
though.
holding.
Doesn't look like Thomas is going to be back from what I just saw.
Landry doesn't
here.
look like he's going to be back either.
Right. So I'd still hold him for right now.
Okay, Elijah Moore, Derek Brown, keep or drop, 63% rostered.
Drop. I can't believe he's still this high. Drop. I mean, what else do we have to see? We haven't seen anything all season.
He's tweeting about the fact that he's not getting any targets. So yeah, I'd drop.
All right. What about Garrett Wilson? Can we tweet about him not getting? He's 80% rostered right now. He was one of our favorite ads. It was looking so good. And then Joe Flacco went back to being the backup. Chris Allen, you want to keep Garrett Wilson on your roster, or would you rather trade him in for one of these other rookies that we just talked about all show?
No, I'd still hold him. I'd give it another like week or so and see if Zach Wilson can get at least a better handle of the offense. But yeah, I'll hold him for a couple more weeks.
D-Bro, do you have the same patience as Chris?
I don't. Only in the sense, and this all comes down to who is out there. If
Yes,
and
fair.
You're playing the long stretch game here.
Well, let's do it. Jameson Williams or Garrett Wilson? Who do you want?
Jameson Williams.
Oh, Jameson Williams.
Wan'Dale Robinson or Garrett Wilson?
Wan'Dale.
I think I'd go Garrett, but I understand.
I'll take
Skyy Moore or Garrett Wilson.
Yep, Skyy.
Ooh, Garrett Wilson for me.
All right. Okay, that's good. This is good. This is what people need to know. And of course, people always have more questions. And typically they find us on our Discord, which is free to join, fantasypros.com/chat, where you can interact with us and our amazing Fantasy Pros community, which is growing every single moment of the day. We want you to be a part of it. Go check it out, fantasypros.com/chat. When you're a premium member, you get access to stages, AMA channels, and the touchdown call contest where we're giving away free stuff. This is from WitCD. WitCD wants to know, worth dropping Woods for Jahan Dotson, Mooney, Wan'Dale Robinson, or Tyquan Thornton. So is it time to drop Robert Woods? Derek Brown, I imagine you're going to say yes. The question is, who for?
I would say yes. I mean, look, even with the target volume, he's not doing a ton with it. I would drop him for any one of these guys. I mean, honestly, if we're going upside here, I would say Mooney, Wan'Dale, or Tyquan. If I got to take one of them, it's probably Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah, Dotson's value in kind of a weird limbo with Wentz being hurt. How about for you? Who are the order of guys that you would add here for you dropping Woods?
Yeah, lockstep with D-Bro. I think at the very least, it's either for Robinson or Tyquan. You could make the case for Mooney. I think at least through Sunday, Mooney was like a number 2 amongst all wide receivers in air yard share. But I mean, it's Justin Fields' air yard share. So it's like you got to dock that down a little bit. So yeah, I think Robinson or Thornton for sure.
Well, he might be a number 2, but you are number 1, Chris Allen, and I encourage everybody to go follow him on the Twitter machine at Chris Allen FFWX. Again, doing amazing work in the fantasy football community, one of our favorite people here. And I know I'm not supposed to have favorites, but I just do. Chris, you're one of them. And it's great to have you on the show. It's always a good time, and we thank you for your insight and your time. We know how busy this time of year is. And of course, we want to thank all of you for listening to the show by giving you an Amon-Ra St. Brown helmet. That's right, courtesy of our friends at Pristine Auction. All you have to do is go to fantasypros.com/contest to get in there. And by leaving a review of the podcast, wherever you get your pods, go do that. Then you can go to fantasypros.com/contest and enter to win. And if you follow us on our social media platforms, that means the Twitter machine, that means Instagram, that means what else would I forget? Twitter, Instagram. Oh yeah, the TikTok where Andrew Erickson's famous. All of those fun things. Every single one of those and the review of the podcast, each one is an entry to win that Amon-Ra St. Brown helmet, thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction. So go keep playing your leagues, adding your players over on the Sleeper app. Go keep fighting the good fight through week 7. And of course, that'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Derek Brown and Chris Allen, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.